Good morning. It's March 14th, 2009. My name is Lou LaCroix. I'm the commander, American Legion Post 6, Baron Scribner here in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. I have with me today Father Charles Smart, who was born on January 21st, 1965. He was in the United States Air Force during the support, stationed in Germany for the support of Desert Storm in the United States Air Force, and he was a Staff Sergeant E5. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Now, Father Smart, a few personal things. When and where you were born, about your family and siblings and things like that. Just some basic biological information if you'd like to share with us.
First, Lou, I'd like to thank you for your service to our country. It's tremendously appreciated by me and my family.
Thank you.
I entered the military service and was born in Huntington, Indiana. My father was also in the military. He was a Marine in the Korean War. He didn't often talk about it, but he did have, you know, a few anecdotes, but he had some personal wisdom that he shared with me when I was younger. And one of those items was that men often talked about what they would do and what they would accomplish and you know, how tough they are.
Don't we all?
But he told me, he says, when you were in the thick of things, you didn't know how you were going to react until you were in it.
Very true.
And some of the guys who boasted a lot were frightened, and some of those who were meek and timid stood out heroically. But the truth is that all were there serving, all were there honoring this call to a country that has tremendous ideals and principles.
True. What were you doing before you went in the service? What was your occupation or whatever before you went in the service?
I knew I was going to go in the service since I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
I mentally prepared myself, and during high school, that was a goal. It was a desire to serve my country, a patriotic duty. From high school, I went into the military as a volunteer. I had one brother, my oldest brother was a Marine. I had my next brother, oldest brother, was in the Army. I had another brother in the Air Force and another brother in the Marines. Oh. So our Father imparted upon us a tremendous duty of honor. I was also named after my great uncle, Charles Ray Grant, who died in military service in World War II on the Japanese islands. Oh,
quite a military background for your family. A question a lot of people will ask, like, I was in the Army, and you obviously your siblings were diversified between the Air Force, Army, Marines. What made you choose the Air Force?
I felt that they had a technical direction that I enjoyed technical, electronics, communications type things, and I felt that they had that environment that enabled me to provide as much as I could.
Okay. What type of, did you, while you were in basic training or your advanced training, did you have a specific or specialized training that you had?
Yeah, the field that I went into was satellite and microwave communications and operations. It was rather new field when I went in, rather new environment of providing basically telephone service,
Right.
And communication service, data services in the field.
Well, we had a little bit in common there because when I was in the service when I was stationed in Germany, I was communications, radar guidance control and microwave. How was it difficult for you? Because a lot of people found it difficult to adapt from civilian life to the regimented military life. How was it for you?
It was definitely the most challenging for me was to accept the discipline that the military, but you know, that is something that I needed at the time. It was an environment that was well suited for me to have that structure and to have that discipline, and it actually gave me the environment to excel in studies of the electronics and communications field, because I felt like I didn't do well in school as far as my education, but in that environment, in that military training environment, which had a lot of hands-on training, that kind of training was more suited, I guess, to my type of personality and stuff.
What I'd like to go into now, and I'll turn the floor over to you, so to speak. Tell us about your services, where you were stationed, and what you did while you were on active duty.
Sure. My first training was at San Antonio, Texas. That'd be our basic training. From there, I went to Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi for my technical training. From that point, my first duty assignment was at Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland. Our mission there was to support communications for Air Force One, Air Force Two, Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Ooh.
Very exciting environment to be in. I was there for approximately 2 years. And then my next duty assignment was to the 4th Air Support Operations Center Squadron in Germany. Our mission there, when we started, when I first got there, was to support communications for United States Army 5th Corps, and our squadron provided air support operations where our commander and our group of officers, so to speak, would be with the forward command post for the Army 5th Corps on deployment during wartime. And they would provide air support to their forward battalions and frontline fighting groups. My particular job in the communications was to set up satellite communications and set microwave communication stations. It was the two worked together in redundancy in case of any kind of attack to those units. The satellite units would carry basically phone lines and data lines back to the rear stations or the air bases, so that the commanders would be able to talk directly to the aircraft, to those aircrafts that would provide the air support to the Army ground units.
Did you have direct support, communication-wise or otherwise, to the actual operations in Desert Storm?
Yes, when we at first we had the Army 7th Corps in Germany that we worked with in support during the Cold War, that would provide security to prevent Russia from coming in. And then from that point, Army 7th Corps during Desert Storm was drawn down to Saudi Arabia, and we were to provide that protection in Germany for defenses against any kind of potential Soviet attack. The many of our unit and members of U.S. Army 5th Corps were used to manpower 7th Corps down in Saudi Arabia for the Desert Storm. And we also provided exchange of equipment and materials and personnel down to 7th Corps during the war.
Oh, did you actually go down to Saudi Arabia?
I myself have not. Many many of the people I knew, there's a certain percentage of people I knew rotated into Saudi Arabia during that time.
It sounds like you had a pretty nerve-wracking job over there, especially when the 7th Corps, you said, was moved out and you had that gap to fill in. How was the camaraderie in your unit and friendships that you made and all that? Was it a nice, solid group of guys?
Well, that was pretty much our family over there. I was over in Germany for an 8-year period of time, two extended tours, and in that environment of being in a country where everybody speaks German, and you have the American group kind of, they would tighten together. They would interact a great deal with German citizens, and we had plenty of people that we know of German nationality and of other nationalities, because Germany became, after the war, quite a melting pot of different kinds of nationalities and so forth. But as far as military members, the fact of having people there that spoke English and the difficulty of speaking a multitude of different languages that were there kept us kind of close-knit, and there was a lot of military members there that kept us a large community. Yeah.
How often were you able to contact your family in the States, or communicate with them, or actually come home maybe on a
It was rather convenient in Germany itself. Just being able to pick up a phone and call at any time you wanted, and the travel back and forth during my time there was also very available. Military transports or civilian flights back was very available.
Oh, like those Mars flights and stuff?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, when you ended your term of service, when you decided that you had enough of the service, or else whatever the case may be, were you still stationed in Germany when you ETS'd out?
Yes, that's where I ended my service. They do require you to transfer to a base in the States to get out of the service. But basically, yes, that was my last time in the service, was in Germany.
How were you welcomed back home? Family, friends, community?
They were happy. They were happy to see me. They were. I mean, it was a long time. It was a long time to be away from home. 10 years, 8 months. Although that I got to travel back and forth, it was a good feeling to be in America again, and the many countries that I've been to in my travels, nothing is like America.
Yes, that's the truth. I'm curious, your reacclimation to civilian life after those years in the service, did your experiences in the military, did you carry some of them experiences with you, and the other question is, it's a dual question, how you became a man of the cloth?
Yeah. After that much time in the military, there was definitely a difference. Your military language and technical language is different than what you might find in the civilian
excuse me,
technology sector. The military acronyms, the mentality of shorten every large word into something really small so that you don't have to spend a lot of time speaking about it. Rather worked against me in the civilian world, where they like the long words, and you could have a technical conversation with someone in the civilian technical sector and not really understand each other when you were talking about the exact same thing. I found that difficult to find a job.
Is that right?
That caused, because I had a great deal of technical training. I also supported that with college education. Yet going into the, doing interviews for technical jobs, I could not communicate well. I wasn't ready. I did not go through this course of translation from military technical language into civilian technical language.
Yeah, because in the military you had abbreviations for everything.
Yes.
And I found that a little difficult when I first came out too.
Yeah.
Now, what if this is not too personal? What made you become a man of the cloth?
Definitely the tragedies in my personal life. In the military, it's my understanding, and I don't know if I have exactly the right data here, but my understanding is that 50% of military marriages end up in divorce. I grew up in faithful Catholic family, and the situation of the military is not always a positive environment for marriage. Although they work hard at trying to address this issue. When I was there, it was very stressful on marriages.
Yes, it was.
But I went through a divorce, personal tragedies in my own life. During that time, you know, I needed someone, and even before that, when I was a little kid, I had memories of knowing that God was there for me, and I pretty much decided in my youth that I was going to go another way. And I found that that was that I wasn't very good at doing things my own way, and caused a great deal of problems in my life and other people's lives. And
well, you're not alone there, Father.
When I was in that moment of tragedy, it humbled me, and I asked God for help. And He helped me in huge ways, and very intimate and very touching ways that He brought about. And that led me on the road to answering this call that He had for me to serve Him.
Good. I don't know if I've said this, but Father Charles Smart is our chaplain at the American Legion Post 6 here in Stevens Point. And it's a pleasure having him as our chaplain because of his knowledge and his service, which we totally thank you for. It's a lot of people have, in a situation similar to yourself, other than being a man of the cloth, felt as though they did their part. They may have supported Desert Storm or Iraqi Freedom, and they feel as though they don't feel as though they're veterans. But you were served during the Operation Desert Storm, and at a moment's notice, you could have been in the air in that country. Your job of support in Germany was just as important as a communications clerk that was in Iraq. And so I say to all you veterans out there, if you feel as though you didn't give much to the service, to the war effort, whatever conflict you were in, don't feel that way. You're still a veteran, and we still honor you, and we honor all our veterans. And Father Smart is a shining example of that, because he is extremely active. He's still serving. He's still serving our veterans through the American Legion. And I'm proud to know this man. I really am. Is there something that you would like to say about?
Well, my father and my family, this idea of patriotism, this idea of serving our country for the ideals that our country was founded on. The things that I've learned just by traveling around the world is that America thinks different. And we not only have a responsibility to when evil people began to do evil things upon other human beings, that we have to possibly go to war and fight to stop these evil things from happening. that we have a responsibility to fight before we have to go to war. And what I mean by that is that we have a responsibility to secure the ideologies of America, these great principles that have given the individual human being security in the rights that God has given them, the right to life, liberty, and happiness, that we have a responsibility to fight there also to maintain those principles. Whether it be from attack from outside our nation or attack from within inside our nation. We have to defend these principles on all fronts.
That's right.
The idea that we as military members have lived in history. When we think about George Washington and the men who fought in the Revolutionary War, we're thinking of these men in history. They didn't think themselves in history when they were performing this great feat in history, this great lesson that we learn in history. They didn't think of themselves that way, and we are the makers of history today.
Yes.
When I was in Germany, the 8 years that I was able to witness the United States military members making history, both in two tremendous events in history. One was the Cold War and the fall of Russia, the Russian control over the East Germany and of the Eastern Soviet Union, and the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the campaign, a military campaign in the Persian Gulf called Desert Storm. Mm-hmm. These two tremendous events took place in a relatively short time in history, back to back, and the United States military member was right in the middle of these events, making this history come out in such a positive way because of the American military members' presence in the places that they were brought out tremendously positive results for humanity in that time.
Very good. I have hundreds of thousands of questions, but my one question is this, whether it be relevant to our questioning here, is why are you still serving the veterans?
If we do not recognize in a tangible manner what these men and women have done to secure the freedoms of all Americans, and we shouldn't minimize it, because they secure freedoms for peoples all throughout the world and through many periods of history. if we don't do some kind of tangible remembering of them, our children do not recognize the great responsibility that they have in maintaining this same kind of attitude or their own responsibility towards these great principles that we hold so dear in America. The respect that my father had for the military member, when he and my mother named me after my great uncle, Charles Ray Grant, and his passing on this feeling of responsibility to his sons,
Yes.
and daughters, is what placed me in the position that I am here today, to know that it is very important for me to show this tangible interaction with the military members, and to take care of them for this sacrifice that they've made, this personal giving of themselves to maintain these principles.
Right. So I'm going to conclude by saying to all veterans, families of veterans, and non-veterans out there, support your troops, be there for them, be there for their families while they're away, like Father said, making these personal sacrifices to keep this island of freedom, this nation of democracy free for generations to come. Because without our veterans, there would be no United States. Father, I noticed you have an easel here with maps of, looks like Germany and Eastern and Western Europe. Could you explain these for us, please?
Yeah. For me, one of the things about military members, Lou, is that we live in history. We create history. That we can create history in a positive or negative way.
Yes.
And here we were, as military members, adhering to very high ideals, very important principles that played out in history in a tremendous way. While stationed in Germany, in the mid to late 80s, one of our missions was to set up a structure of strength that would prevent the Soviet Union from moving into Germany and into Europe. So during that time, Germany was split up into sections. We had the United States section, France section, and Great Britain, and then there was the Russian section. And the U.S. military, in union with some European nations, formed the group of NATO. We had the responsibility of protecting Europe against any kind of invasion from Russia. As you see, eastern part of Germany, controlled by Russia, was feared to be a route into Europe right through the Frankfurt region.
Oh.
Okay, so our particular responsibility with U.S. Army 5th Corps and the 4th Air Support Operations Center Squadron was to protect what was called the Fulda Gap. It was an area where it was believed that the Soviet Union could travel through the easiest because of the mountainous regions and stuff. It was a gap that would allow heavy artillery and stuff to move through. So in union with 7th Corps, 5th Corps, and NATO, we had this area of Germany all protected. Mm-hmm. And there was a huge area on the border of Western Germany and Eastern Germany, basically a no man's land, most commonly referred to as the Wall. But it just wasn't one wall, it was two fenced areas that had like 300 or 400 yards of tilled up ground in between these fences that went from all the way from the northern part of Germany to the southern part of Germany and down through the regions of Czechoslovakia and across Austria. And that was a tremendous thing for a military feat to maintain that, the security along that border. And for us as military members to see images on television of masses of people at one time during the 80s, to see people from Czechoslovakia just pouring over into Germany because of the political situation that was going on at the time, that they were finally loosening their grip on the Soviet side of the wall, and people were just in Czechoslovakia, the local government opened the gate and people just flowed through. And from that, you were able to see that through short steps that things just started opening up and breaking down. In Berlin, which is far into the area of East Germany, that there was a wall around the western section of Berlin, and then there was the eastern section of Berlin, and on the western section was all walled in, that people were able to travel from the eastern side into Berlin. There was masses of humanity that went into the west of Berlin, and masses of people who began to pour into the western parts of Germany from all areas as that wall started opening up in places. Then to have President Reagan come to Berlin and meet with President Mikhail Gorbachev and have him say, tear down that wall. And a short time thereafter, to see people climbing on these walls in Berlin and seeing them tumble over and seeing them smash in this wall, to see this great opening of an opportunity for democracy and these great principles that we support to begin flowing into these countries. It became unstoppable, but to know that every military member that was ever stationed in Germany, that was ever stationed over in Europe, was a part of this coming about in a nonviolent manner. It was really a tremendous moment, and made me recognize the part that military members have in history, that they were able to bring this about in a nonviolent way.
Well, that's good. And it was just these same walls, like in Berlin and around there, that just a few months prior, if somebody was on that wall, they would have been shot.
Yes, Yes, it was like night and day.
My
night
goodness.
and day. And from this event enabled the next step, the next event, this great event of the Iraq War, the Persian Gulf War, that as it began to build up, the realization that there would be a war in Iraq, the defenders of Europe, the 7th Corps, was drawn down to Saudi Arabia and took up their residence in Saudi Arabia, leaving 5th Corps to stay behind and secure the European nations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big job for them.
Along with NATO, and it was a very short period of time from feeling that like Russia could mount an attack on Europe at any moment to wow, this is a whole different picture. This is really different. And then our attention going to the terrible things that were going on in Iraq. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Father.
Yep.
Appreciate that. And you did see a lot of history in that short period of time that you were talking about, from total domination by the Russians and the fear of the Russian invasion to a new day dawning where that threat was gone, but then again, there was the Desert Storm.
This just strengthened my appreciation for the military member, the honor and dignity that we should show to these members.
Father Charles, about your dad that served the Second Korean War, you said,
yes,
as a Marine. How affected was he about the war?
I always saw my dad as a very strong man, very solid, very dependable man. And there was a period in 1983 when he had a heart attack, and I began to see him as a human being and vulnerable. And during that time, we had some opportunities. It was just after I got out of high school, and I was able to delay my enlistment for a little while so that I could spend some time with my dad. But we were able to talk a little bit about his time in Korea, and I always known that he liked beans and weenies. It was kind of this excitable moment in our house when we had these beans and weenies. Mom would make these homemade baked beans that were just unlike any other bean ever made, and he would put his weenies in his beans and not necessarily eat them on a bun. And he told me a story when he was in Korea that they were out scouting one time, and they weren't able to go back to their home base, so they were diverted and went to another base. And they were assigned to this bunker, and he comes into the bunker, and it was like entering a gold mine, because he's talking to these guys, and they hated beans and weenies. So up on the top edge of the bunker were all of these cans and cans and cans of sea ration beans and weenies. up there, and him and his two other guys for the next 3 days just cleaned off those shelves of beans. And so on another note, he expressed his respect for people who did extraordinary things. And one story he was able to express, and of course I'll try to clean it up from the military Marine language that took place at the time to something more simple. But it was a time when he was injured and was awarded his Purple Heart. The temperatures at that time were extremely cold. It was a brutal environment. I believe he said he had 4 pairs of thermal underwear on and 5 pairs of socks in his boots. And when he was involved in some ordnance exploding, and he was injured in the back of his leg, in the calf of his leg, and they took him in to the field hospital, and they not only had to remove the shrapnel, but he said they were pulling all this big clumps of thermal underwear and pants out of his leg, and they had left his leg open and packed it, and then they had sent him to another hospital. And on the way, when he was in the ambulance, they were racing pretty quickly, and the driver lost control, and there was a crash.
Oh, geez.
And so he said he laid there for quite a bit of time, and with other people in there, laying on top of another, and it seemed like no one was coming for a long time. And then finally someone opened the back door and said, "Are you okay in there?" And he goes, "Are you the driver?" And he said, "Yeah." He says, "Come in here." He says, "Why?" He says, "So I can kick your butt." So, translated from his Marine language.
Sounds like something a Marine would say.
So they, you know, without any more violence, he was made it to a military hospital, and we still have him today. He has a tremendous amount of strength yet today. Had a heart attack and multiple surgeries since 1983.
Oh, man.
And I believe at this point he may be one of the longest living persons who had heart surgery.
Oh. Good stock.
He's doing, yes, good man, very strong.
Now, that wound that he received, that ended his wartime?
Yes, he received Purple Heart and came home. I don't know much else about his experiences. I know that I heard things from my brothers, especially the oldest brother was a Marine, who he was able to talk to more because he went through my brother went through the Marine Corps, and they were able to talk. But from the time I was in the military until now, I haven't been home much.
Oh, okay.
So there wasn't that. Although I did get to spend time with him, it was more we wanted to spend time together, right, and not talk about those things. And he did not seem to want to talk about that.
Oh, that's understandable with anyone that saw combat, such as, especially the cold and everything that they went through over in Korea. But now they're finally, thank God, they're getting more recognition from the, if you will, forgotten war. But I'm glad to see that there have been strides made to accept the Korean veterans, and Vietnam veterans, I myself being one. But your father knows, and Vietnam veterans, the Korean War veterans, and the Vietnam veterans know what we went through. And we are getting the recognition slowly but surely, but it is being addressed, and thankfully, it's coming to fruition.
And one of the things that I think brings about this recognition is military members and their attitude towards other military members.
Yes.
When other people see this tangible response that we have for the military members, it intrigues them, and it gives them a message. They can see that we have respect for them.
Yes.
And it is the fact that they've made themselves available. It's the fact that they have honored their country's call. And it's not to say that we put blinders on and know that we don't recognize that, you know, men can do evil things.
Yes.
And it's happened all throughout history, but men also do good things. And sometimes we're all bad. And sometimes we all do good things.
Yep.
In all humility, when I was in Germany, I was not living necessarily a good life. I was not being all honorable. Yet I know that my purpose in being there, my calling to patriotism, my calling to serve my country, in itself is noble and is good. And even then, I recognize the great principles that our country holds and the need to defend those principles.
Thank you again. Thank you, Father Smart. And this concludes this interview. And remember, support your troops.